Okay, hi everyone. I'm making this video today to show you how to fit fiberglass race fairings, aftermarket race fairings, to a track bike. This is my SV650 second gen. And the reason I'm making this video is because as I've looked around on YouTube, etc., and on Google, I couldn't really find a lot for this type of job. Now, I'm not the best Googleizer in the world, but having looked around, there's a lot of videos, a lot of content where guys are fitting to, say, R1s and GSXR 600s, where they are maybe using fiberglass fairings that are kind of well suited to the existing mounts on the bike, and because they've kind of been made to suit those mounts. Whereas with something like this, which is a little bit bespoke, you've got GSXR 600 replica fairings in fiberglass against an SV650 which didn't even come fully faired. It was only half faired. It makes it a little bit tricky, so I couldn't really find anything. I was a bit sort of nervous about doing it, so I put together this video to help people get a feel for what I went through and how I went about doing it. I've already done a video about how I joined these two panels together, the upper fairing panel, which is kind of one piece, and the belly pan, and how I sort of did that. And that's there is some decent content on YouTube for that, but then taking the whole thing and then getting it fitted onto the bike, fitting up brackets, shaping the brackets, and where to hook the brackets up to the bike, it was a little bit more tricky. And then of course at the end of all that, when it's all done, you've got to make sure that none of this snags. So the bars have got to be able to go left without snagging here, and they've got to be able to go right without snagging kind of back there, which they don't. So that's it really. Yeah, it was a good job. I like the way it looks now. It's all pretty solid and it's ready to go to brands on the 16th of Feb. So I hope you find this useful. Cheers. Okay, well, in best true Blue Peter style, this is the brackets that was supplied by JHS to me to fit the fairings to the frame. The idea being, you can see there, you've got drill-ins essentially for a Zeus fastener. 6.5mm big hole, 3mm little holes. And then on the bottom you've got these two holes where you mount it to the frame of the motorcycle. So it involves drilling holes in the motorcycle frame, at least tapping holes. I'm waiting for my tap and die set to come from Amazon. So that's the flat plate, and then here we've got I've got it set up now. I've put it on here, these old karting bolts. Actually, I knew they'd come in handy. Just mounted there, and a couple of karting seat spacers, similar there. Obviously you could bring the thing flush, but if you do that, then you get already I've got a bit of interference there, so I might need to Dremel that off or move the reservoir across here slightly, or just angle it down. The trouble is I've made this bracket up specially to put it on there, just because the old handlebar grip had the bracket on, so it's tight. But I could Dremel the panel off, but I'll probably try and move the master cylinder first. But other than that, you're getting, yeah, and it's getting a bit of snagging there as well actually, but you're getting lock to lock just about. Yeah, it's a few bangs and so on and so forth, but I'll get all that squared away. And then obviously this is now fitted, but it's kind of hanging off the bike, propped up on cardboard boxes to give me the clearance. And of course the big issue there then is getting this clearance between the wheel and the fairing. So there is clearance. Once I've fitted it, I can push it back and get, I think, more than enough clearance there, hopefully, for the scrutineers. And there's essentially 4 mounting points. There's these holes here in the fairing, and this is where these brackets have got to pick up the frame here. You can't really see it because it's dark. And then at the bottom, at the back of this belly pan, we've got to pick up probably on the old what was the side stand mount. So the other plates are specific to that side stand mount. They screw in there, and then you've just got to bend that one and rivet through here. So it's not straightforward. And then of course, then when you step back from the bike, it's got to look like it's not got a face like Simon Cadell from Heidi High, and that it's all in line, which it should be. And the trick then is to take this plate, and here's one I made earlier, and bend it to shape. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So what I did was I offered it up when it looked like this. It looked flat. I offered it into, I messed around a little bit, but I figured that here, this is reinforced, this little bit here, in behind it's reinforced. So I offered it into there, essentially, thinking that's probably where it's going to have to be riveted through that not riveted, but by secured rather with a Zeus fastener. So the rivet would need to go in there where you can see. And then looking at the angle of the plate, I figured it would probably just pick up nicely on this. You can just see this down spar here, the two holes there. But obviously I had to get the bends, the angle of the bends right. You can see I've now put the Zeus fastener in there nicely. There it is there. Put the Zeus fastener in. That then, once I've drilled through the panel, will pick up in this one. And then if you can just see that bend should, I've just got that bend quite nice now, should just go flat against there. Obviously I have to mark it really accurately. Mark it accurately, drill it accurately, tap it accurately. Oh fucking hell. And then that'll be the first one done, and then obviously I'll do the other one, the other side, because once I've done one it should be pretty straightforward, and then it'll just be a case of lining up the belly pan, which in itself might be a bit tricky because already you can see it's picking up on the exhaust. It's pretty tight on the exhaust. So because, as I said earlier, these are multi-purpose panels for GSXR particularly, I'm probably going to have to take the Dremel to that and cut a lot of that away. But anyway, we're getting there. I think I'm doing this right. I've no idea. That's the trouble. I know I've got to have clearance to the front wheel. That's pretty obvious. I know that when I look down, it's got to kind of look something like that. There should be that sort of gap. I know I don't want it snagging the clocks too much, and it doesn't. They're in nice and tight and neat. I know I can't have any pickup here, so I know I've got to sort that out. It just looks a bit far from the bottom at the moment. That's probably because it's not pulled back yet. I think when it's pulled back, it's as tight as I'm going to get it. And then we'll see how many people fall about in hysterics at the track and go, what is that? So we'll see. But anyway, I'll get in there. Just need my tap and die set to come, but I'm going to get the other bracket bent up now and report back in a bit. Alright, cheers. Okay, well, 2 brackets then made up. I'm not too disappointed with that, I have to say. I've never done that before. That's pretty good. That's the first one. Second one, left and right. As I said before, I just need my tap and die set to come now, so I can start drilling the frame. That's the scary bit, and getting them all bolted up. But I'm going to have a cup of tea, and I'm going to come back and work on the belly pan. Then that's the brackets for these. They're flat as well. Again, rivet the Zeus fastener into both, and then hook them up. One hooks up on the, as I told you, the side stand where that was, and the other on the clutch cover housing. So I'm going to have a look at that when I've had a cup of tea. So I'll be back in a bit. Cheers. So progress is pretty good. This is the belly pan bracket, which you can see I've just bent. It was flat. Obviously when it came, I think I showed you earlier. Those 2 holes showed you before. Pick up on the, here basically. Just see 2 holes there. Hang on. There they are. 2 holes just under that bolt. That's where the side stand located, I'm pretty sure. Obviously I won't put that on until I've got the fronts in nice and tight, and I can make sure I can pick that up as far back this belly pan as possible, so I can get the belly pan up. Now there's a bit of reinforcement there which has got a dimple in the bottom of it, which there's no way I'm going to pick that up. It's too far down, so I'm just presuming that's for a different bike. So I'm just going to have to drill through this this fiberglass as it is. It doesn't really matter. It will be fine. It will be strong enough. So that's that one. Like I say, I'm just going to bolt it in now. Okay, well I said I was going to bolt it in, but I was actually talking out of my arse. So what I'm really going to do is firstly keep this Sharpie dry, and secondly I'm going to rivet it up with this Zeus fastener. Not Deuce fastener, as the guy in America said. I'm fairly sure the D's silent. The Zeus fastener, and obviously it'll go in the back there. It's pre-drilled, this thing. Sometimes these holes are a bit too small, a bit too tight. No, they're all right, absolutely fine. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, perfect. Pop this in the back. Doesn't matter which way round that goes, by the way, that thing. I just tend to go with this most comfortable. Probably go that way because I keep this bit away from the bend, like that. Yeah, it's going to rivet this up now. I hope you can see this. I have no idea whether this is in shot because I'm a complete amateur. There's that. Yeah, they're in. That's good. They're in. They're in nicely. Once again, my Rolson £7.50 rivet gun. As you know, this was the reviews. Did never believe the reviews on Amazon. People are like, oh, I won't release the rivet head. Bloody useless thing. Bloody rubbish. It's all commercial bloody espionage or whatever. It's all people trying to undermine perfectly good kit, which is perfectly cheap, and keep the price of their own up. So £7.50 from Amazon, and it comes with 3 different heads and a bunch of rivets, tons of rivets, different sizes, and it works perfectly. It releases. Oh, I worked 4 or 5 times and it didn't release, and I actually took the thing apart because I used it wrong the first time I used it. I took it apart and couldn't get it back together, and there was even a video online of a guy dismantling his Rolson rivet gun and putting it back together. What a legend. So I was quids in, and there we are. That's lovely and neat, nice and neatly riveted on. So when that's bolted on now, and I've drilled up the fairing in the right place, hopefully, fingers crossed, just be a case of lining it up and bashing the Zeus in. The Zeus. Jobs are good. And look, I've even got my glove caught in there, so that's cool. Really pleased with these. You can see how I've bent them. These were the flat plates from yesterday. I've bent them at the right angle, and then I've screwed them into here. Those screws, they look a little bit, it looks a little bit gash, but it's not entirely. The reason they're slightly skewiff like that is because when you drill through that frame, because the kind of lattice framework behind, sometimes you come out in a gap, and sometimes you come out near a kind of piece of metal going in the sort of perpendicular to the main spar, but going in towards the engine, if you get me. So when you put the bolt on the other side, which is what I've done here, you can tap the frame, but I kind of prefer to nut and bolt them. I just think it's more secure, particularly with all the vibration from racing, he says, and I'll go on to talk about that when I go to the other side. Then, but the bolt, to get the nut on the back, it can be slightly out of line, and there might be a bit of lattice work in the way, so it kind of doesn't pull through quite square. Having said that, it doesn't matter too much, because A, they're super tight within the nut, and secondly, they're hidden behind the fairings, so as you can see, they're totally solid, and then this is all riveted up, and the panel will just clip into there. So that's the left-hand one, which I'm pleased with. Now the right-hand one, if I come around the bike, I'm taking you past my amazing new livery. Come around the left-hand one, slightly different. It's slightly higher up. Now I'm presuming that's because, so they're not in exactly the same position on the frame is my point, is because this here is obviously where the other mounting point from the front, and I just think it looks to me like it's slightly further forward to me now, short of bending it. I mean, it's not made totally symmetrical, so it matters not too much that that's slightly further forward. The main thing is that the fairing doesn't look like I'm constantly turning left or right, that it's all lined up. So obviously there, you know, that's the top mounting point for the right, and then that's the bottom mounting point for the right. And again, similar sort of thing, bent it all up, which I'm super pleased with. You've got to get the bends right pretty much first time, so you don't want to be re-bending this back and forward, it's just going to weaken it. The difference here is, you may see, you probably won't see, yeah you can just see a little bit of blue Loctite around there. Now with these, it's very tight in behind here, so it was pretty much impossible to nut and bolt them. So this one was an open hole, but really tough to get the nut on, really tough. Again, a lot of lattice work, very tight. I can't even get my finger in. I can't even get my finger in there. I might have got it up from there. And then this one was a blind hole anyway. I didn't emerge from the hole for the drilling. So what I did, I took the same bolts as I got the other side, and because I drilled the holes, they're pretty tight, maybe 5 mil drill, I can't remember, possibly a 4.5. What I did was I used these nuts, these bolts, to tap in to the aluminium, which is quite soft anyway. Now I'd ordered a tap and die set, but I'm too tight to unpack it because I don't think I'm ever going to use it again, so I'm probably going to send it back. And these actually tap themselves in pretty well. Now I had to cut this one down a bit because it went tight very soon, and I just think it would have sheared and I'd have left drilling it out. So I cut the end off a little bit. I then made the mistake of doing that with this one. I would try to left that the full length really, because that hole wasn't blind, so I think it would have gone all the way in. Having said that, when I screwed them in, they screwed in relatively easily, but I put Loctite on them, hence the blue that you can see. And then when they got to the plate, the heads got to the plate, they went super, super, super tight, which is, if you look it up, if you Google that, that is really quite tight. So I think they're all right, and with the Loctite in too, I think they should be fine. But I can try them at the motorcycle license day on the 16th of Feb. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of jiggery pokery in the meantime, putting this on and back and forth and stuff. So if they start to loosen up then or on the 16th, then I'm going to have to look at it again. My solution will be, I've already ordered some longer bolts. The problem here was these were only 25mm at their full length, so they didn't quite emerge from beyond the lattice work. Lattice work, it sounds like an apple pie. Didn't quite come beyond the lattice work, so I've ordered some that are longer, 40mm, and so if they do come out, I'm going to nut and bolt that one. I should be able to get in with a longer bolt and just pull it tight. This one, I don't know what I'll do. The main thing is, because I've drilled them at sort of 4.5, 5mm, I've left myself plenty of room for manoeuvre if I have to buy like an M6 die, tap, I always get them wrong, fucking don't know what's wrong with me, tap, and I think it's tap, isn't it? Yeah. And then I can always go up to M6 bolts, because that was what was recommended anyway. But I wanted to start with M5, give myself some room for manoeuvre, because over time it might be I need to go up a size anyway. So for the time being, they're fine. They're held on in other places, and all we clip the lower fairing too. So hopefully they'll work out. But I'm quite pleased with that. And then this down here, the bottom of the clutch cover, I've got to put a plate on here. I need to work that out where that one goes. On the other side, just coming round for the belly pan on the other side, lovely livery. Down here, you can see a bit better now than the panel's off. This is the other one in here. Again, put a lovely bend in it. That bend is consistent with the way the belly pan falls. You can just see the Zeus fastener riveted in behind. And that's all attached to, with some old karting nuts and bolts, magic, to where the old side stand was. I don't know how I'm going to cope with that side stand. I'm normally fucked when I get off this bike, and it's as much as I can do to put it on the side stand, let alone hang on to it. So I'll probably just lie it down or something, or find a friend. I think the second will be harder. So yeah, there we are. So I'm just going to put the old front fairing on now, and then I'm going to get on with rigging up the belly pan. So there we are then. That's all. That one's clipped in now there into the bracket perfectly. And yeah, there's the other one on this side. Again, held in nice. Looks all good. Looks solid. No movement. No movement. Absolutely solid. And it's pretty even actually. This front one. I mean, there's no telling how symmetrical these are, but it's just coming slightly forward of that weld, and it's slightly below the crease. Whereas on the other side, slightly different, slightly higher. Up and but yeah, similar position otherwise, slightly further back, but it doesn't really show too much. I mean, if I put the handlebars straight, that looks straight. Obviously what we're looking for is for that to be in line. It is. So there we are, pleased with that. Just give you a little low down shot while I knock something over. It's looking good. It's just getting that belly pan on there, and we are nearly ready. Okay, so I'm doing a test fit now with this lower, well, the belly pan essentially. I'm not going to fix it in with the Zeus's yet. I can, by offering it up here, I'm doing this one-handed, it's a bit awkward, but by offering it up into here, I can see where the issues are. Firstly here, where it's snagging the exhaust, which comes out quite low. And also I can see at the clutch cover, just behind, you can see a dimple there. In fact, you can't, it's behind the pipe. You see that dimple there in the panel, the little hole basically. That's, as I said before, that's reinforced on the other side of the panel. I'll give you a better shot of that. That's reinforced there, the dark part of the panel. So that's really the place to pick up that panel. You can see the other piece of reinforcement on the other side. I really don't think I'm going to pick up on that piece on the other side. I think it's possible. And then, so what we're really looking to do is get this, again, flat plate, drill through there, Zeus fastener on the back of that plate. You can see it's pre-drilled, and then obviously this then attached to the bike itself. Now this, you can see the holes of specific size will go on the clutch cover. It would go better actually further down on here. It actually fits on there. with the bolts will go through it, obviously underneath that, but it's too far forward of that reinforced bit. Obviously you can see another reinforced bit there, which is a possible option, the very dark black bit, but it goes better here. But because of this cutaway here, the holes won't line up. So I've got a Dremel coming shortly, so I'm going to cut a little bit out of there, just lengthen that gap there and there, and then I can offer this up and I can work out how much to bend it in. And in fact, it might not need anything at all. It might actually need bending out, I'm not sure, because obviously it can't go much further because it's right on the exhaust. So I can do that by eye, and then so I'm waiting for the Dremel to come. I'll cut that section out. I'll cut a little piece out here as well, so I can make sure absolutely it's not fouling on here, and I'm getting it up as high as I can, and then I'm in business. So she's arrived, the Dremel 4000. Okay, there she is. So I put the baby to good use. There's the slither of metal that I've just chopped out of here. You can see that bracket. I've just chopped the top off there with the Dremel, because as I said, it wouldn't. The holes were not quite in line with the clutch housing. Okay, well I hope you can see the panel. I've marked it, I've offered it up, I've put the Zeus fasteners back in to get a fairer representation of where the exhaust falls. So I'm going to start the old Dremel going. Bless it, doesn't actually need a whole lot of work. Here goes. So all I'm doing now is just giving it a little bit of a polish, just to tidy it up a bit. I've done this bit already, just to neaten it, and then I'll trial fit it up again and offer it up, and we can hopefully get this bloody thing fitted soon. Okay, I think that looks pretty good, other than the black bit of pen. That's not a bad cut actually, it's quite tidy, it's quite smooth. Stop any sort of cracking further down the panel. I'll get that black pen off and then I will give it a go. Okay, well this is turning out to be a massive faff. Despite trimming off some here, some fiberglass here, it's just not been possible for me to hook up that bracket, even after I'd cut out some material, and to get it to meet up with the fairing here, the belly pan here, sufficiently tight to get a Zeus against it. It's just too much of a gap, because the minute you bend it back to follow the profile of the fairing, it goes even further. And the thing that's stopping it, of course, is the fact that, I say of course, is the fact that the exhaust on this bike tucks up kind of tight under here. So I think where I've ended up, I've tried and tried and tried for about an hour to try and get this thing to match. Just can't do it. I've shimmed the bracket, try and pull it out from the clutch cover. There's only so many shims I can get on it before the bolt's too short anyway, and then it's just too tight because of the exhaust. So what I think I'm going to do, you can just see this hole here. This is the exhaust mounting bracket. I've taken that bolt out, and I'm just going to use the bracket that's come, and I'm just going to kind of drill it out a little bit so I can get the bolt through the hole, because it's too small at the moment, and then sort of fashion it down here, and probably have to cut this lip away. That's sort of stopping it going in. That'll allow that, if I cut that lip off, that'll allow that to just go tight into there, and then I should be able to pick up from a Zeus about here with the bracket into there. So I've started to widen, as you can see, I've widened that hole now, so the exhaust bracket will now pass through it. And then I'm going to rig it up somehow, and I'll come back in a bit and let you know how I got on. Alright, cheers. Okay then, so before I finally tighten it up, this is the finished solution really. I showed you the bracket, I'd oversized it. Again, another one of these carting washers and bolts. I've got it bolted through the exhaust hanger, and then this bracket, when it's tight, will just come around like that. And you can see I've put the Zeus in the back of this plate, and then it'll just go drill a hole through there, and then that will go tight into there, and it's solid, it's not going anywhere, it's absolutely fine, it's just stopping it flapping around. So it's not a bad solution. Okay, voila, there it is. Like I say, I could have trimmed down here this bracket, but it's all right, you know. It's not fantastic looking, but it's pretty good, and I've managed to pick up a decent bit of meat of the fiberglass there. What I'm now doing, just finish off, now I've got my Dremel, I'm going to grind everything away, including my teeth. This bit here, you've got a bit of pick up here on the frame, you can just see it touching the frame there, which will be annoying because it'll probably flap and make a noise. It'll just wear the paint away. So what I've done, just coming around the bike, lovely livery. To the other side, well, I did this one earlier, I've just taken the Dremel to it, and I could take more out, scallop it more, but I've just taken enough really for it to, when it flaps, just for it to avoid contacting the frame.